From KVOA, we've got you covered. This is News 4 Tucson, live at 10.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Amanda Gomez.
And I'm John Overall. Former Minnesota police officer Derek Chauvin walked out of a Minneapolis courtroom in handcuffs today after a jury convicted him on all counts in the death of George Floyd.
This following 3 weeks of testimony and nearly a year of protests across the nation. Jay Gray has the latest from Minneapolis.
The decision echoes from the courthouse.
As to count 1, unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony, find the defendant guilty.
To the crowd gathered outside. Hundreds celebrating the verdict. Derek Chauvin guilty on all 3 counts: second-degree manslaughter, second and third-degree murder.
Justice for George means freedom for all.
As the former Minneapolis police officer is led from the courtroom in handcuffs.
It was just a beautiful moment when we finally get to see somebody get at least an inch of justice.
Raw emotion spills into the streets, downtown, and in the area now known as George Floyd Square.
Thank you, Lord!
The place where he was killed.
We can't stop killing our babies.
A mixture of overwhelming joy,
So grateful,
and relief.
Thank God my city will not burn tonight. This is a new day. This is something beautiful. This is something different. It's finally some little piece of justice.
Justice framed by intense security, visible across the city. Military vehicles and more than 3,000 National Guard soldiers joining more than 1,500 police and federal agents on the ground. The governor invoking a peacetime emergency order and area schools going to virtual learning through at least the end of the week. As a history lesson unfolds in real time in the heart of the city. Chauvin was denied bail. He'll be sentenced in 8 weeks. The maximum combined sentence for all 3 charges, 75 years in prison. Jay Gray, NBC News, Minneapolis.
We spoke with a Tucson lawyer who says justice was served.
In fact, he was so moved by the verdict today, he closed up his office for the rest of the afternoon. News 4 Tucson's Eric Fink joins us with more tonight from our newsroom. Eric?
John, Amanda, this lawyer has been on both sides of the equation. He firmly believes justice was done today and hopes the death of George Floyd and Derek Chauvin's conviction is an inflection point that begins a journey to living up to the American idea that we are all created equal.
There are very few days like this, when you do legal work. There's just turning points, and we're experiencing one now.
Stephen Portell has been a prosecutor and a defense attorney. He's taken cases on behalf of police officers and the Pima County Sheriff's Deputies Union. Portell says the actions that led to George Floyd's death 11 months ago and Tuesday's all-guilty verdict of Derek Chauvin will change the public's expectation of policing.
What was reasonable 25, 30 years ago will no longer necessarily be automatically considered reasonable going forward.
Portell has examined the evidence on both sides of the courtroom in use of force cases.
We always look for reasonableness, so that standard is not changing as a result of today's verdict. Even though the standard hasn't changed, people's attitudes and people's expectations for the training and the conduct of officers will change.
We're here for George! Say his name! George!
We spoke with a community activist who organized the vigil at Dunbar Pavilion in the days after Floyd's murder.
It is a small victory for us. It's good that, he was found guilty on the charges because he was guilty, but at the same time, we can't forget that there are other people out there that have still gone through police brutality, that those cases haven't been heard. And we have to keep the same energy for those cases as this case.
Portell thinks there's now a readiness for change.
And it's an odd thing for a white middle-aged man to say, but I'm hoping we're opening the new door that this country has promised and has always promised. We're opening that new door. It doesn't have to be this way, where we call out the National Guard in advance of a verdict, where we have plywood placed on businesses, where a man has to die gasping for breath on the street.
And tonight, Black Lives Matter Tucson reacting with this, quote, "We celebrate these guilty verdicts, but we also know justice will never be found in a cage. Justice is defunding and abolishing the police. Justice is creating a future where black folks can live free from the threat of state-sanctioned murder. We fight not just for the fallen, but for the hope of our collective liberation from the tyranny of white supremacy." We've got you covered tonight from the newsroom. I'm Eric Fink, News 4 Tucson.